Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the British Library and to another Classic Album Sundays event here. I'm Colleen Cosmo Murphy, and I founded Classic Album Sundays as an event and an online platform and as an in-person event in 2010 so that we could appreciate the album format more and to have immersive listening events so we could listen to music on really beautiful sound equipment, which we have here tonight. We have Bowers & Wilkins 800 series loudspeakers, and these were the same types of speakers that were used in Abbey Road, where this featured album tonight was also mixed and partially recorded. We have a P9 Riga turntable with an Audio-Technica moving coil cartridge, a Riga iOS phono stage, cord cabling throughout, and Class A amplification. So if you have any questions, please see me or see Andrew and Craig after the show from Bowers & Wilkins, and I want to thank them for bringing in this wonderful system. We've hosted many Classic Album Sundays events here at the British Library. We've hosted events and explored albums with Laurie Anderson, John Grant, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, The Dam, The Buzzcocks, Soul to Soul, Saint Etienne, and many, many, many more. And you can find videos and podcasts of some of these interviews on the Classic Album Sundays website, also the Classic Album Sundays and the British Library YouTube channels. Audio recordings of our interviews are also included in the British Library National Sound Archives, which it's an amazing resource. It has over 6 million recordings and tens of thousands of music recordings as well. And it's also an honor to host an event here at this institution that hosts the Magna Carta and all these other national treasures. I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank also our Classic Album Sundays Patreon members, supporters, and benefactors who are here tonight. And a big hello to all of those watching from home. On this day in 1995, Radiohead released their second album, The Bends. Their debut album, Pablo Honey, had spawned a massive single, Creep, which also broke in America. So the pressure was really on the young band to deliver something big. And they certainly did, with an album that recognized how quickly they had risen up the ranks, and which they named after the decompression sickness that scuba divers can get if they ascend to the surface too quickly. Radiohead's second album, The Bends, was released during the height of Britpop, with bands like Oasis and Blur dominating the charts. But their sound didn't really quite fit in. However, it became the album that firmly established the Radiohead aesthetic, and the rest, as they say, is history. Tonight, we'll celebrate the album's 30th anniversary together. And also, after the event, you can go into the foyer where Newham Bookshop, an independent bookseller, is selling signed copies of Colin Greenwood's book, A Portrait of Radiohead. Joining us to tell the story behind the recording of The Bends is the album's producer, John Leckie. Now, John Leckie is something of a legend himself, having started in 1970 at Abbey Road as a tape op, working his way through the ranks. And by the mid-1970s, he sat in the producer's seat himself. He's produced albums by magazines, Simple Minds, Verve, XTC, The Fall, The Stone Roses, of course, Muse, and of course, tonight's featured album, The Bends. He's also a Music Week, Brit Award, and Q Award winner for Best Producer. Please give a warm welcome to John Leckie. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, it's an honor.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor for me. And there's so many albums I have. Today, before I was going out, I thought, should I pull out a bunch of other records for you to sign? And I was going and getting Dukes of the Stratosphere, and I thought, no, that's probably a bit rude. So I just got one for you.
Okay.
Now, in the 5 years leading up to Radiohead, you produced so many different albums, nearly 20 albums, by bands like the Stone Roses, Robin Hitchcock, and Ride. So you were a really busy boy around this time.
Yeah.
Was Pablo Honey, their debut album, Radiohead's debut album. Was it on your radar at all while you were doing these other productions?
No,
No.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all, really. I might have heard Creep, but I certainly didn't hear the album. No, no.
So how, I read that the band requested you because they loved your work, obviously, especially with Magazine, their debut album, Real Life. And please tell us about your first meeting with the band.
With Radiohead?
Yes.
I went to a gig, actually. I went to Gloucester. I went to some gig in Gloucester they were playing, and we got on great. I saw the gig, and, you know, we hung out after, and yeah, we hit it off together, I think. And then the next time I met was in a rehearsal room. And what was interesting about the rehearsal room is that they would play through all the songs, and they probably had about 30, 32, 33 songs, lots of them. And they were all played perfect, you know, not perfectly, but they were all arranged and everyone had their parts and this kind of thing. And as you say, because of Creep, because of their hit single in America, the record company was very keen to capitalize on it, on getting the next hit single out. So at this rehearsal, there was the manager, the A&R people. They even flew in people from America, from Capitol. So the room, there was, you know, A&R people, management and everything, and myself, you know. And the band played their 30 songs, and with the idea was to choose which one was the single. And of course, no one could decide, you know. No one knew what the single was because it was, you know, there were so many songs, and, you know, what is a single? A hit single, you know, we're not talking of a single, we're talking #1 in America is what they were setting their heights on, you know. And that's where I met the band, and we you know, we got on, we hit it off, and we talked about recording. And I think, yeah, so that meeting, I remember I looked up, it was December, but we didn't start till February. I was doing another record at the time through all this. I was just really busy, like full on, going from one record to the other and going to America and Canada and places I was going. So finally we got together, yeah, in March, I think, beginning of March, end of February. Yeah.
That must be so daunting for a young band to have, especially American record execs coming over. And, you know, a young band, they just put out one album, they had this success that they didn't even know they were going to have. Did that create an atmosphere of tension from the start to have this pressure, especially with people flying over from the States?
Oh, of course, yeah.
So how did you mitigate that? Because, you know, being a producer, of course, you have the technical side, which you had down. But do you think there's also a side where you have to have like people skills and know how to manage people and deal with people, and especially artists who are under a lot of pressure, who have different kinds of behaviors, very intense behaviors? What did you do?
That's a big question. What do I do? But the technical skill is a very small part of it, really. It's 5 or 10. Anyone can learn how the mixer works. I mean, obviously, there's an experience, and you get you get your own style, and you know what's good, what to use, and what not to do, what not to waste time on, and that kind of thing. But the people skills, I don't. It's difficult for me to pinpoint that, and you know, why is it that I get on with people? And the interesting thing is that I'm not a musician myself. You know, I'm still in awe of musicians. I don't know how they do it. When I see drummers play, and you know, guitarists and piano players, it's like, wow, how do you do that? It's still magic to me. You know, I've never learnt to play. I never had time. As soon as really, when I went into a recording studio, I wanted to be a film director. I was more like, I'm going to be Godard or Fellini. I'm going to make films, you know. And I ended up making records, you know. But I didn't come from a musical background. No one in my family were musical. But I just loved music. I was lucky to be in the 60s, you know, and there was all this fantastic music happening, you know. Every time you heard a new record, every week there was not a new record, but a new sound, you know. There was like, wow, what's that? Jimi Hendrix or Pink Floyd or, you know, crazy electronic stuff, Frank Zappa and things. So, you know, records in the 60s, I'm sure people have heard this, you know, every time something came out, it was a new experience to hear it.
It's like an event,
Yeah,
almost like what's happening now. Yeah. And I know that people gathered around when Sgt. Pepper came out, and they were like gathering around, having parties, you know, just to listen to the album for the first time.
But maybe people skills is probably, I don't know, with musicians, they're prone to be a bit temperamental, and you have to, and it's because, you know, your people skills, I think it's knowing what to say and when not to say things, and when to offer support and when to step back. You know, you've also got a band, you know, it's not a solo singer, which is a different thing to when you've got a band. They've got their own chemistry and their own balance within themselves, or their imbalance within themselves, you know, and you have to adapt yourself to that. And
how's the dynamic between the band members at this point, you know, when they embarked upon this record, before they went on tour in the middle? Initially, was there tension between them because of all this pressure that they're being put under to deliver?
Yeah, there was, but all bands have tension and pressure, especially if they're making an album for a major record company. It's quite different. I'd say nowadays, you know, it's not like you know, when there's a big investment in them, you know, they try not to think about it or talk about it or anything, but it obviously, and also the age thing, you know, they're in their 20s, mid-20s. There was only Phil, the drummer, that was married. Yeah, there's all that growing up thing if they haven't grown up by the time they're in their mid-20s. But, you know, there is a psychological thing going and the development. You know.
Yeah, well, I guess I must have really looked up to you as well, and especially Nigel Godrich was in on some of these sessions and assisting, correct? And so he had helped you before, so he was a big fan of you.
I'd done a few records with Nigel at RAC. Nigel was the tape op, me as the engineer, and then Nigel sort of taking over. So yeah, I mean, I chose Nigel. I said I'd only do it at RAC if Nigel's there, you know.
Okay, so he must have been chuffed.
Yeah, and they never met Nigel before, you know.
So that was their first meeting with him?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Now, Johnny Greenwood has said before that you really helped demystify the studio recording experience. How so? I mean, they were doing magic on their instruments, and they thought you were doing some kind of wizardry, but were you showing them what you were doing, or were you talking about the different techniques you were using? Or?
No, I just did.
Yeah.
I just did what I did. I didn't sort of go, you've got to use this microphone on here and turn this knob like this. I didn't say that at all. They were curious, you know, they never touched the equipment. It's quite interesting that with bands, is people seem to think that bands come and fiddle with the mixer. It's very, very rare that musicians do that, you know. Like the Beatles never touched the mixer, you know. Even George Martin never touched the mixer.
Yeah.
So no, but you know, you have a balance, you know. You record the band, and you can, when you just listen back, you can turn things up and down, and you say, well, what if there was more guitar, you know, or what if can't hear the bass, turn the bass up, and you'd say, hang on a minute, you know, you can't hear the bass because we're on the small speakers. Or maybe the bass needs attention, it needs a different kind of bass, you know, or something. All those things. So it wasn't intentional at all to teach them how to record, you know.
Yeah, but maybe it's your down-to-earth attitude.
Yeah, I mean, it's their record, you know. I'm in service to them, really.
So when they came in, before you started doing the recording, did they have ideas on how they wanted it to sound at all? Or any kind of mission, a sonic mission, or anything that they told you before you sat down?
Just make it sound great is what they usually say.
Sound great, good.
I mean, no one gets into details because everyone's got a different opinion, you know.
Yeah.
And if something doesn't sound very good, then someone will say, oh, I don't think the drums are that good or something, you know. It's a flow thing, you know. You don't really analyze it as you're going along, or and some bands, when you produce them, they don't have any comments at all, you know. They just sit there dumb and don't say anything. And so it's all very much on the producer, like keeping energy going, whereas other bands might want to take over.
Right.
You know, or be really negative, you know.
What were they like?
What, Radiohead?
Yeah.
Depends what mood Tom's in.
That's a
Is
good
what
way of
they're
saying
like,
it.
yeah.
I guess, yeah. I've read that you and the band lived the songs as you were recording them. So would you give us a sense just of what a day-to-day kind of routine would be like? Were you doing regular hours, or were they?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we started at Rack Studio. Shall I put this on?
Yeah, that sounds great.
We're on here. There's a man. Look, there's a good picture. So we started at Rack Studios. Here's an old picture of Rack. Right, the big building. It used to be a school apparently, and the big building here is the studio. You can just see the entrance under the columns. There's a studio each side. I can't remember what's upstairs, but the studios are on the ground floor. And this other building here is the accommodation. So you can stay there. There's, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's luxurious, but it's spacious, And in fact, it is luxurious. There's even a sauna there. This all belonged to a guy called Mickey Most, who was a producer and did loads of great records. And it's still there, still running, still going, There we go, Rack Studios, St John's Wood, just at the back of Finchley Road near Lord's Cricket Ground. And that's the room. We were in Studio 1, and that's the view from the mixer. Now, this mixer, it's an API, it's an American mixer, at the time, very rare. It was probably the only one in England at the time, American mixer. And it was all installed in 1976. I did a record with the Skids there, Masquerade, an EP you might know on Days in Europa in 1977, 78. But it's still the same mixer. If you go in there today, nearly 50 years, 48 years later, it's the same. Mm-hmm. It's the same mixer, same setup. Might be different speakers and things, but it's basically a GPO jack field, which is quite rare. It's GPO proper jacks plugged in there. And it was all done on tape, of course. There's no computers at all anywhere on the record. Well, there is actually, but we'll get onto that. But no, it was all recorded on tape. And the band play in the room beyond. There's always daylight, so there's daylight coming in from the front, behind
That's nice.
where I'm standing, and there's daylight at the end. You can draw the curtains. You can see everything. You have loads of space. I've done records in there where you might have two drum kits or something, and you can just set them both up and choose. You're not cramped. You can do anything, really. And it's St John's Wood, and it's great. And you're living there. You've got your own pad in St John's Wood. And, we were there for 9 weeks, which is a long time. We were there from end of February till whatever that is, 8 weeks, April, May, I think we left.
And then the band went on tour, didn't they?
There's another picture. That's the side view.
Yeah, I've been to Rack Studios before, and it's amazing. I just love going into recording studios because you can feel kind of the music in the walls in a strange way.
Yeah. It's still almost it is my first choice to go to in England, really. Loads of great records done there.
Yeah. But the recording process was a long process. I mean, you were in 3 different studios, the band broke and went on tour. So how did that all work out? I mean, when you recorded for 9 weeks here.
Yeah. Then
they went on tour, and when they came back.
And then when we came back, we went to the Manor Studios.
Yes.
Yeah. We won't have that one here.
Well, let's go through some of the songs maybe first, and then you can show us some of these other slides.
Oh, yeah.
Because the first song, Planet Telex, has an interesting story because this was done in one session at Rack. How did that song evolve?
Well, that song wasn't on the demo. It wasn't on the demo tape. It wasn't played, rehearsal or anything, even though it's the first track on the record. It was made up on the night, and it came because, I say, we were living here. And so there was, every night there was a chef that would cook food. And then one night they said, the chef has got the day off, so here's £100 and go to a restaurant. And we'd never been out. We hadn't left the building for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, And so come on, let's go to Lemonia, we went to in Regent's Park Road. Greek restaurant, big place. And of course we all had a few glasses of wine and everything and started talking. It was the first time we'd really been out of the building and, you know, had a bit of distance from what we were doing, so it was great. And Nigel had one of the first, he had Sound Tools, which was before Pro Tools, which was just a stereo sampler thing with a Mac computer, Mac 2CX, I think it was. And he just had this, and we said, hey, and we had a song which was a B-side called Killer Cars, and Tom or someone said, I think usually the first idea comes through Tom, and he said, what we should do is get those drums on the intro and make up a couple of loops, you know, and this was a new thing. It's 94, you know, not many people were doing sort of sampling thing, but, you know, we hadn't really attempted it. And we had another bottle of wine and took some back and sat there, and Nigel bashed out the drum loop. And I can't remember much about it myself, but what happened was by 2 o'clock in the morning, so within 3 hours, I suppose, three hours, we had that song, Planet Telex, in the parts with all the guitar. And I think the keyboard, which starts it da-da-da-da with a delay, it's a kind of juddery kind of Fender Rhodes keyboard, that was set up for one of the other songs. So as soon as you hit the piano, it would shudder. It would go dung 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 dung. You know, and if you turn the graphic up, it would feed back. It would, you know, it would go out of control. And we loved that. We loved messing around with that. It was just, and so suddenly that was on the track, and then Ed had the guitar thing, and it got to 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said, Tom, you've got to go out and sing it now, and then it's finished. Oh, okay then. So he trekked out in the studio, and what you hear is what he sang.
Oh my gosh.
And everyone was like, where'd you get those words from? You know, it was all like improvised, you know. I'm sure they must have had some inkling of the song, but it was never rehearsed, or it was never on the list.
It wasn't on a demo or anything?
No, not on the demo. And it was called Planet Xerox, and they weren't allowed to use Xerox because it was a trade name, so it got changed to Telex, you know. And that was, that's the first track, yeah.
Well, so that's the only one that has any kind of like modern technology in terms of a computer, because you were doing
yeah,
everything
that's the
else on
only
tape.
computer on the whole record is just those drum loops.
Wow.
It kind of goes.
The Bends, the next song, that was written a couple of years earlier, and
It
you
was
know,
a
it
band,
has
yeah.
York describes the song as a Bowie pastiche, and because there's so many different structures, I guess there's a lot of different sections. How did that song evolve in the studio?
Well, it was always a key song. It was always like on the list for the hit single. You know? So we had lots of attempts at it. And one of the things that, because they were so urgently needed this a hit single, we decided we'd record 4 potential songs. Of course, no one could decide what the 4 were for the A-sides. And then I'd go to Abbey Road and mix those 4 songs for the single. And the band would stay at Rack and do B-sides with Nigel there, because everything was set up in the studio. And yeah, so I went to Abbey Road with the Bends, Nice Dream and everything, and I can't remember the other songs. And we had a meeting before I went, the day before, and Tom said, you can't mix the Bends. It's shit. It's horrible. Don't. I don't want to hear it. Wipe it. Get rid of it. You know. And everyone was like, no, that's the best song. That's going to be the hit. And anyway, so as I say, we were all living at Rack, and when I got up in the morning, there was this note passed under the door. And there's the note, if you can read it, if anyone can read it. I don't know if you can see all that.
Write down the phone number.
It's great. He writes the Bends in brackets DS.
That's great. That's great.
And that's a note which I still kept. I thought, wow, this is genius, you know. Yeah, and he says the recorders are out of tune. So the original version from Rack, those early versions, had Johnny playing the recorder, do, 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 do. You know, he played that intro melody on the recorders. And Tom thought they were out of tune, tomorrow they were in tune, So you never know. And that's, I'm glad we kept that, and that was the best. But and just while we're on these things, when the band went on tour, they sent me this postcard from Seville. And
Master John Leckie.
And Tom obviously writes like that all the time, you see, with little cartoon. But it's lovely. They all kept it. Lots and lots and lots of love.
Hotel Macarena.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun place.
That's where they were, yeah. Okay, we'll go back to this.
Well, the next song, High and Dry, you didn't produce.
High and Dry was an interesting one because it wasn't on the list. And it was not only a single, and it was one of the best songs, but I never heard it until the record came out.
So you never even heard it at all?
Never heard it at all.
Do you know why they included it? Because they hadn't listened to it for a long time as well,
Correct.
I read.
And the recording is done by Jim Warren, who was their sound man, who did the live sound. And it was recorded in the rehearsal room at Courtyard. At the management had a little rehearsal room. And Phil had a new drum kit, which is why the bass drum is all boomy, it's like real pristine drum. Oh, we'll just try this out, play that song again, And Jim Warren recorded it, and there it is. It's on the record. No, I never heard that song until the record came out. I'm like, what's this, High and Dry?
It's amazing how many songs they had just kicking around when you think about it. I mean, we were talking earlier, you always had to have like the B-side to the that hadn't been released before. You have an A-side single and the B-side.
There would, sometimes when you get, I don't know, genius songwriters, Tom York and some other people, Richard Ashcroft is pretty the same. Suddenly it just pours out of them. Suddenly it's like this gift from heaven, and they can't stop writing. They're doing like 3 or 4 amazing songs a day, and it's like, oh, I've got this other one, And you're like, wow, where did you get that from,
It's incredible.
And I think Tom's like that as well,
Yeah. The next track, Fake Plastic Trees, that had some challenges. Do you want to tell us about those?
Now, Fake Plastic Trees was actually, and it was recorded, and I checked the date, it was recorded the day after we saw Jeff Buckley at the garage. So I'd seen Jeff Buckley in New York, their manager had seen Jeff Buckley, and we said, hey, you've got to see Jeff Buckley, he's playing in the garage on Tuesday. So we all trekked up there, and it wasn't full, it wasn't sold out or anything, and it was fantastic. It was just Jeff Buckley with the Telecaster and the Fender, and it was really good. And, people say that Tom sings like Jeff Buckley, but I think what it gave him, it gave him confidence in his falsetto, to sing in the high voice with strength, and it became part of the song, And Tom just, he can deliver like that,
He's a great singer. I mean, How is he? Is he a first take kind of a singer?
Yeah, most of the time. Most of the time, it's not. If everything else is right, if the vibe's right and the track is right, but that song, I think, was done, I'm pretty certain, well, I know, it was done with no click, and it was done with Tom on his own. And one of the reasons we had to do it is because the next day or the following day, no, it would have been the following week, actually, now I'm thinking about it, because we did the organ after that. We had, they wanted to use strings, and they had a friend called, I can't remember his name now, John, he was a student from Oxford, and he played violin. And they said, oh, we don't need an orchestra or quartet, we just need a cello player. And I knew this cello player called Caroline Lavelle, who was in the Electra strings, which was a string section I'd use. And I said, no problem, I've got the best cello player in the world, she's lovely, you'll really enjoy her. And of course, Caroline's really flamboyant and kind of, and you've got these kind of students there, kind of a bit embarrassed by her, but it was great. And we did the strings on that and Nice Dream, and we just did a string session with her and him. And
was Johnny Greenwood there too for that string
Yeah,
section?
they
Because
were
that
written
seems
out.
like something he would be part of.
Exactly, he wrote the parts out.
Oh, he did write the parts out.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was Fake Plastic Trees, and that was recorded, Tom on his own with acoustic guitar, no click, just, okay, Tom, sing the song. Oh, okay. And that's what you hear is what he did.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then we spent 2 days putting the organ on, do, that little organ tune, and Johnny was always, Tom and Johnny on the drawbars of the Hammond, changing the sound for each little thing. Took 2 days to do that, but never mind.
Well, the whole album, you said, we'll talk about it later, but you did quite a long time on
But
this
the
album.
thing was, the original track of just Tom singing took 3 minutes.
Wow.
As long as it took to play it, So you never know in the studio. You have to be patient. You have to also be willing to accept something that's first take if you recognize it as good, and also be prepared to spend 3 or 4 days on something,
And do all the band members have to agree that it's passed their own kind of, quality control test?
Yeah, if anyone's got an objection, they would say, and there'd be an argument, But yeah, no, anyone could speak up, and they would, Someone, there was no one sitting in the corner sulking. It was always energy directed to what was coming out of the speakers,
And it was collaborative in that sense. Bones was re-recorded after they came back from tour and had a few challenges, if you could elaborate.
Bones was such a funny song. I never got it. Bones. I never quite got that song because of the
Guitar.
blues boogie kind of riff thing that was going through it. I didn't quite understand why we needed it, but we did struggle over it and everything. Yeah.
And do you remember what some of those struggles were, or is it just trying to get it right?
Just trying to get it right, really. Tom would sing as they're playing. So you cut the track with bass drums, either one guitar or 2 guitars, depending on what was key, and the vocal, you see. So sometimes Tom would not play, he would just sing, So you do get a good idea, of what's going on. And there's no click track, you see, so you have to make a performance, And the closer your recording is to the finished thing, the more chance you've got of winning, of getting something good,
I just want to explain what a click track, or I think you should explain, not me, what a click track is to the people that may not know.
It's a metronome. It's just a tick-tock that keeps everything in time. They're hell,
Yeah.
Well, most records nowadays are done like that, and
But in the beginning, way back when you're doing back in the 60s, sometimes you'd record live performances, and it was just that the band would naturally speed up and naturally slow down.
Yeah,
so
you
you
didn't
wouldn't
think
have a
about
click
it.
track. It wasn't so steady.
yeah.
Now, talking about tempo, how important was the tempo to the songs?
Very important. For them, it was the most important thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it makes a lot of difference.
It's like
Tempo is something feels too fast, or if it's dragging or feels slow. And again, it's a matter of opinion or consensus of everyone in the room, and sometimes it's obvious, something's better a little bit faster. But no, tempo was a big thing.
Because I love the tempo of Nice Dream, and that was initially selected as a single, but sometimes I find with tempo, if you slow it down, sometimes the sonics can be a bit fuller and richer. I mean, I think it's a psychoacoustic thing. I don't think it's necessarily, it's just how we hear it. But I was just wondering about the tempo and to the feel of the song, to change the sonics as well.
I don't think it really changes the song. It's really the feel
Just
thing.
the feel.
And the tempo is the click track is the vocal for me. I always say the click track is the voice. That's what you're keeping time with, the way the song's sung. That should be the click track,
This one seems like it was more led by Johnny Greenwood rather than Tom York.
Just was one of the best tracks on the record for me. Just was done at Rack in the early day, when the first or second week. It's actually, dare I say, it's edited, it's not one long performance, but the basic track is kind of edited. Johnny's guitar is live, all that stuff. So he's got a pedal. I've forgotten what they're called now. It's red. I remember it's red, but it's an octave pedal. So you got your foot switch and you're playing and you put your switch down and the sound goes up an octave. And Johnny had this one where if you clicked it again, it would go another octave. I think there were 3 octaves. So as he's playing up the neck of the guitar, you click the switch and it would go up an octave and then he'd click it again. So that's why the solo goes higher and higher and higher. It's fantastic. I've never seen anyone do that before.
And why is that your favorite song on the album? What about it appeals to you?
The intro.
Yeah, it's a great
the way
intro.
It starts. The drums and
I think York said, he was jokingly said that Greenwood was trying to get as many chords as he could into one song.
That's right, yeah.
Now,
You see, they're very musical, they're very, Johnny with his writing, and obviously, as the years gone on, he's expanded that. But it was very musical discussions, with the piano and the guitar, working the chord. Maybe it should be a D there or something, Yeah. So it's intelligent musicianship,
So it wasn't like working with some of the punk bands?
No. But it did have that essence, it did have that attitude, I suppose. There was definitely a punk attitude.
Right.
And I tell you one thing that we used to, I shouldn't really say this, but me and Nigel used to fall about laughing behind the desk. They would hide behind the desk. So when they'd all be set up and they got the headphones and ready to do a take, and they'd count it in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and as soon as they start, they'd all be jumping around. And like they were on stage, they'd all be, knocking chairs over, and Tom would be on the floor, and this kind of thing, as if it was a stage performance. There's only me and Nigel sitting there. We'd be laughing like anything,
Front row seats. Well, I guess you're trying to capture that, because I know they went out and road tested.
Because they all had the hair, the hair was.
Yeah. You have a great photo of that, I think, too. I guess they're trying to they road tested some of these songs live on that tour, and they came back really renewed.
Oh, yeah.
Full of energy.
Yeah.
And, because I think sometimes it can be.
Well, that's what it was. They hadn't played them before an audience. They played them to death to each other in the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
And then we'd gone in here in the studio and played them and listened back, and no, that's not it. But as soon as they play in front of an audience, this works, hey, that bit's much better when it goes faster, and this kind of thing. So they feed off the audience reaction, which is only natural, really. That's it.
Well, that leads into the next song, Iron Lung, because Iron Lung was, of course, he had the EP prior to the Bends, and you actually used the instrumentation from a live performance.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that, please?
Well, we struggled with My Iron Lung. I could never understand was on the list for being a single. I mean, I could never imagine it being played on the radio, let alone being number 1 in America, My Iron Lung. But anyway, that was chosen for the studio, and we struggled over it because it was a bit noisy and aggressive kind of thing. And when we went to them, we'd had it, and I'd mixed it. We recorded it here at Rack. And when we went into the Manor after they'd done their tour, they'd done the MTV show at the Astoria. And they had a tape and they put, hey, let's check this show out. We just got the video. My Iron Lung come on, and we went, that's it. That's how it goes. That's what it should be. So we got the tape from MTV. I don't know who paid for it, and Tom did the vocal again, and that was it. That's what you hear.
Well, how do you get all those crowd sounds out? I mean, it must have been a lot of crowd noise, or was it recorded in a studio? It was recorded.
It's recorded on stage.
On stage, but it was.
Well, the crowd were quiet. The guitars were loud.
Actually, you weren't using his mic. Yeah, and you didn't use Tom's mic anyways because he re-recorded it.
Yeah.
Bulletproof, I Wish I Was recorded on one day. Do you remember that session? You did it
Yeah,
all on a Sunday afternoon, you said.
Yeah. Shall I go through some of these?
Yeah.
Because we're up to...
Oh, yeah.
So then we go to the Manor. This was, of course, in the summer, after they come back from tour. The Manor was Richard Branson Virgin studio. It was a great place. I did loads of records there from mid-70s onwards. It closed down about 1994. And it was bought by EMI. So EMI bought all of Virgin Records, including all the property, which included this studio, Olympic Studios, all the Virgin Studios, all came under the EMI, just bought them all. And the first thing EMI did was sell it, which was a real drag. Yeah. And we were trying to get a consortium together to keep it because, it was rock and roll, really. I mean, it looks fantastic, but at the same time, bands live there and, the front bedroom, and there's a swimming pool around the back, there's a lake. Richard Branson even had a go-kart track, so on the right there was a go-kart track and little go-karts that you could crash and things. It was great, and the studio is just this building here, and it had the stone room, so the little extension, you just see the difference in the roof there, was a stone room, size of this stage, and it was all stone, and you could put the drums in there and it sounded fantastic, and it was instant sound, really. And so I went to the Manor for 2 weeks, 14 days, by myself. There was no Nigel, no one else was there. There was a girl called Julie Gardner who was a tape-op, but she spent most of the time sitting in the kitchen. And it was just me and the band, and we re-recorded nearly everything. Not nearly everything. We recorded the Bends, Bulletproof, Bones. I can't remember what else was on. Yeah. Anyway, we recorded lots of tracks. And there we go. Look, the Manor Studios, Shipton and Cherwell Kidlinson. That's a cassette the cover. And this was us in the studio. This was in the Manor. Terrible quality picture. This is the days before phone pictures, It's all, and that's one that you probably see. There's Colin there. Endless computer games. And there's Big Ed sitting there. And there's Johnny and the hair. And what's interesting, of course, we got B&W speakers. These speakers were mine. I've still got them on the TV. They're B&W DM1200s, and Abbey Road had them. And I must have made 6, 7, 8, 10 albums on those speakers, recorded and mixed. And they were great because if you monitored too loud, they would just cut out. So if the drummer did a tom fill and whacked the tom, it would cut out. But I just did loads of records, and it's funny, when I looked at that picture, I thought, oh yeah, those speakers. And I used to carry them around and just use them, and everyone loved them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this album, you spent like nearly 100 days on it.
100, yeah, that's right.
I mean, there's 3 different locations for recording, and then you went by yourself at the very end and went off to Abbey Road to start mixing the album yourself. But then you found some very interesting news while you were doing it. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, they were getting the Americans to mix it. So the first album, Pablo Honey, was done by Sean Slade and Paul Caldera, who I never met. They produced the first record, I don't know where they did it, Chipping Norton, I think. They did it in England. And while I was working with them, they were always, putting down the Americans. They said, we don't want that American sound. They were useless. This is much better. Mm-hmm. And then by the time we got into Abbey Road, they were asking for copy tapes to be sent to America to mix the tracks, which, upset me, really. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of common now, but in those days, I think this was probably the first record that I'd done where someone else had mixed it. I'd always done the whole process, from the rehearsal to the recording to the vocals to the mix to the mastering. I'd kind of overseen the whole thing, and then to have your tapes taken away and someone else to do it You know, I won't say tamper with it, but to do it and do it differently. It's very common now. You know, it's very common. In those days, it was a bit of a shock to do that, you know. But still, I had some of them, and who knows? Who knows?
What differences did you hear with the American mixes?
They were, what can I say? They were brighter. Brasher, is that the word?
I would think so, using America.
Yeah, and we were always going for a rich kind of sound and not a screaming, not an edgy sound, even though you've got these guitars and all sorts of stuff happening sonically. We always wanted warmth and something that wasn't brash, that wasn't like distorted, I suppose. You know, there's a way of having a warm distortion that isn't an edgy thing going on. And when I first got those mixes, I thought they were everything the band said they didn't want.
Do you think it was the pressure from from Capitol Records in America?
No.
You don't?
No, it was the band's choosing.
Oh, it was the band's choosing.
I don't know if you know about Fake Plastic Trees and Bob Clearmountain.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Bob Clearmountain did a mix for Capitol,
yeah.
Fake Plastic Trees, and they wanted to release it, and the band said, no, you're not, no, it's horrible, no, don't ever want to hear that again, you know.
Wow.
The Bob Clearmountain remix, there we go.
Yeah.
So they used, and Fake Plastic Trees is Sean Slade, Paul, it's the American mix, Sean Slade's mix. And when they played it, there were no strings on it. Now, I don't know if you know on Fake Plastic Trees, there is some strings.
Yeah.
And they'd taken the strings out. And everyone was like, hang on, they've forgotten the strings. Did they have the string? Are the strings on the tape? Yeah. So someone phoned up the guys in America, and they go, we didn't like them.
So they made an artistic choice.
We didn't like the strings, doesn't need them, cut them out.
Oh my gosh.
And the band were like, fuck's sake, you know, let's do it.
That's not your job.
So the final mix is actually their mix, up two faders, and the strings from our multi-track flown in and mixed in. Mm. So there's me adding something to someone else's mix. But anyway.
Wow, that's bizarre. It seems like there's a lot of, people working on this album, like a lot of money seemed to have been spent.
I don't know how much it costs.
3 different studios, residential ones, private chefs,
They made it back.
2 different mixes of the album.
They made it back, didn't they? Oh, here we go. Here's a tape box from the Manor. You can see Ben's master, because these are all the masters which I re-recorded. Punch Drunk Lovesick Sing Along, that's a really slow song, I don't know if you know, and they wanted sounds in the background, they wanted abstract sounds going on. And so I said, well, don't send them the track, don't even wear the headphones, just go and record, stop. And so they didn't know what they were playing to, and that's why all those sounds on there are abstract.
Oh, wow.
You just play anything. But, as soon as you say, well, play anything, you become guided by what's there or your memory of it. Oh, there's this bit where it gets like, well, where are we? We must be near the chorus, so I'll do this. But no, if you just play anything for 3 minutes, and that's it.
It reminds me of A Good Day in the Life when they asked all these musicians just
That's
to
it.
sit.
That's where I got it from. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Do you want to show us some more slides? Because we're about to listen to the
yeah. So here we are. Someone might have said, I don't know. This is the garden at the Manor. And Nice Dream, the song Nice Dream, which is strummy acoustic, I had this mad idea of them all playing acoustic. So instead of having one, it's like, maybe we should double track the acoustic. And I'm like, no, let's quadruple track it. Let's get everyone, every acoustic guitar we've got, and make a Phil Spector.
Yeah, wall of sound.
So here they are, everyone, even Phil knows the chords. You see, they're all great musicians. I mean, even Phil, the drummer, could just, play anything, really.
Oh.
So here they are, yeah.
Weren't there some crop circles or something that you were near the Manor?
Yeah, so while we were at the Manor, this distraction, there was a crop circle. So I said, hey, there's a crop circle down the road. You should go and see it. And there it is. This is us looking for the crop circle, trying to feel the power.
While you're paying how much an hour for the studio?
Yeah.
Just joking.
That was important.
That's great.
You see Didcot in the background. You see Didcot Power Station right in the background.
Wow. Is that East Midlands? Is that East Midlands Parkway near there? I think so. I think I'm just recognizing where it is.
We're back to that again.
Now, do you think this is the album in which Radiohead kind of found their voice and established their aesthetic?
Yeah, I do. Well, it certainly wasn't Pablo Honey. But then at the same time, the OK Computer came after, so you can get that. But this is when they were based on their live show. So the Benz is very much their, I wouldn't say stadium show, but it was what they played every night on tour. An OK Computer. Well, if they'd done it the other way around, if they'd done OK Computer as the second album, everyone would go, "What's all that about?" Whereas it's a natural progression to go from still the guitars and the drums and into the more mellow and organic OK Computer. You see.
As I was saying earlier, the Observer said it was one of the 50 albums that changed music. That's a pretty heavy accolade. Where do you hear the legacy of the Bends? In which bands that came up after them do you hear their legacy?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. It was all about guitar tones, I think. It was all, from Nirvana. They were big Nirvana fans, and when we did the record, he died. And
Kurt Cobain,
Kurt Cobain, he died. But the guitar tone, everyone was, I don't know if there was new technology with pedals. Suddenly, all guitarists had all these pedals on stage, like switches to get different effects and things. Before that, they didn't, I don't think.
Some more guitar textures and things like that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the album? I'm sure over the years, has your perception changed from the first time that you heard the final mixes and the final product to how you feel about it today?
I think it's great now, yeah. It took me a few years to think, well, that bit's not right. Why did they want that? But no, I think it's great. Every track of it, it's really good. I don't know about them now, like the albums. It's what they've done in the last, how many albums have they had since? 10, I suppose, 8 or 10 albums. None of them are like this. I don't think there's any tracks that they've done since the Bends that could have gone on the Bends.
Right.
Whether that's the songs or the recordings, I don't know. And they were all, they were younger. Yeah. There's a lot, about working with bands when they're in their 20s as opposed to bands working in their 30s even. Everyone's married with kids and got a house and all this kind of thing.
They want to get it done quickly, not spend 100 days on it.
Exactly, yeah. When we're doing that, that's all that matters in your life is that song, getting that take and doing it. That's all that matters.
Truly living the songs.
Yeah. And that's how you get a result, I think, And everyone's into it together, no one's dropping off, no one's not interested, Yeah. Everyone's, I'm not saying we had intelligent discussions or arguments about things, but after when you've been in the same room with people for a long time, you get a telepathy. You kind of know what people are thinking. You can play something and look at them and know whether they're excited or not without saying anything. That's a big thing in the studio, is what's not said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Please give a hand to John Leckie. So we're just about to listen to the album in its entirety on this beautiful sound system, and I ask that you turn your phones to silent and try not to interact with them. Please refrain from conversation. Just kick back, sit back, and just give yourself over to the music and immerse yourself into this album that's celebrating its 30th anniversary today. After the album replay, we'll have John back up here and you can ask your own questions. So now let's have a listen.
Should we have that one?
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's have a listen to Radiohead, The Bends. Okay. What happens? Go on standby. Wow, this is such a great album. It's really great. You did a good job, John. Good. Partially, I mean, it sounds fantastic. So, it really sounded great. I love the stereo, soundstage as well. It sounds really great. I know some of you are really burning to ask your own questions. I could ask more myself, and I'm going to wait to see.
I'd just like to know about the recording of Street Spirit, because that's my favorite track by far. Can you tell us anything about that, please?
Street Spirit, yeah, the last track, that's my mix, actually. They preferred my mix to the American mix. Yeah, that was done at Rack, and it's one of the few done with a click, actually, because it's dick, 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 it's quite rigid, which I didn't really like, but they all loved it being rigid like that. Yeah, well, what is it? Street Spirit? It's just, I don't know. What was the question? What was so good about Street Spirit, or something a bit different to it? Yeah.
We didn't get to
It's all from Tom. It's all from the band, really. It's all music. That's what he put out at that time when the tape was running. It wasn't a struggle, that track. Some of them were like, there was 3 or 4 different versions, and it'd take you weeks to do it, and you'd listen to it, and 3 weeks later, someone would go, I don't really like that. Can we do it again? But this was a good one.
It's a great way to close the album out, too. Yeah. And thanks for asking, because I didn't get to the last few songs. We had to kind of move along, so thank you. Right up there? Yeah.
Yeah, hi. You were involved in 2 of my favourite bands of the 90s, 2 of the best albums of the 90s, The Bends and Stone Roses, Stone Roses. So how did the 2 compare?
No comparison,
those are
really.
questions that are dicey to ask.
No comparison, really. I don't know. Totally different people, totally different vibe, totally different music, I like to think that I kind of work with all different types of music, and Stone Roses was one of them, and Radiohead was another, and maybe I'd go off and do real world. I went to Africa, I went to India, I just love all kinds of music, and I always try and do the best I can. I mean, I always try and make a record that I would like to listen to, and a record that would last forever. I mean, I'm lucky because I've chosen or been chosen by some great artists to make records, and I've always thought, this is going to last forever. When we record this, we're going to come back in 30 years' time and listen to it, I mean, I don't know how many records are made today that you'll be listening to in 30 years' time,
There's one, yep, right here.
John, thank you. Well, thanks for all the work you've done over the years, so many amazing records. I wondered, can you remember a record or a song that you heard that made you want to find out who the producer was on that record?
Ooh, can't think of any other. It's a difficult one. Who the producer was? No, I can't think. I really don't know that. I'd have to consider that. I'd have to go away and think about that. Who would I guess? Without saying all the classic producers. I mean, there's a lot of records that I listen to, and you think, fuck, how did they do that?
Is there anyone that blew you away in the radio when you were, a kid, a teenager? You thought, oh my.
Oh,
goodness.
yeah.
Which songs really kind of jumped out at you?
Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
That's Pink Floyd. Piper at the Gates
Yep.
of Dawn was great. Beatles records. I mean, even Stones record. I mean, I'm still comparing the Beatles and the Stones because it's like, I still haven't got to a conclusion of which is better. I know the Stones kind of bashed out their records and that's it. That's all you get with the Stones. There's no remixes. There's no fancy stuff going on.
Well, except for
whereas
the
the
Satanic
Beatles,
Majesties.
they get as much as they can out of the track and like tamper with it and do all these things, which is great, But the I don't quite know whether I'm a Stones fan or a Beatles fan.
You can be both. I don't think it's you don't have to compare. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Yep.
Hi, John. You say the role of the producer was making the decisions. When the recording's done, the hard work's done, what was the sequencing of the tracks, the track listing? Because, as we all know, that's the hard work.
That's right, yeah. I didn't actually sequence this, the band did. As I say, I was kind of out the picture a bit towards the end because they were choosing between the American mixes and my mixes and this kind of thing. So I didn't sequence it. That's all I can say. Stone Roses, of course, I did sequence. So, it is an important thing in terms of listening to an album, the way we are here and the way, what an album is as opposed to individual tracks, It is an important thing. It's like a theatre production, it's like editing a film almost, making the album if people listen to it, I love sequencing records. It's suddenly when you put all the tracks together and you suddenly realise that, that fits with that and that fits with that. And it's like editing a film. You've got a little story going on and it's like the best impression of the band, of the music. So I love doing that.
Oh, hi, John. It's Steve. Hello.
Oh, hello. What are you doing about that?
Yeah. A couple of things. So, was there any music that the band played to you sort of privately or just come up with which you were surprised with that they liked or just any kind of,
No, but I played them stuff that they hadn't heard.
Like what?
I played them, believe it or not, I played them Tom Waits. And they hadn't really heard Tom Waits.
Which album?
The one with Kentucky Avenue on.
Okay.
Kentucky Avenue?
I do know this song. I'm trying to remember which album that is.
Yeah, not quite certain. It's probably on Blue Valentine, actually.
Yeah, it's one of the...
I probably played on Blue Valentine. And Tom hadn't heard Tom Waits. And I'm going, man, you got to hear Tom Waits. And we played Kentucky Avenue at Rack in that studio in the morning, 12 o'clock, starting, hey, check this out. You got that Tom Waits record, and we play it. And I turned around, and Tom was in tears. He was crying.
Wow.
So that was his feeling for Tom. Yeah. That's what he got from the Tom Waits record. So I don't know what other, I can't remember, but I remember that incident in particular,
Yeah.
Just one more quick thing. Do you remember at Space Mountain at Youth's place when you went up to him and said, why don't we listen to a record all together quietly? And it was a German composer.
Stockhausen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to
and he went, no.
Yeah, we went to this festival and it was in Youth. I mean, Youth's Killing Joke, he's a fantastic guy and he's got a house in Spain and we all went there. And it's like, what are we going to do? We got all these people. And I said, hey, let's all sit down and listen to a Stockhausen record, Contact or Gesang der Jüngling. And Youth was like, no. And I don't know if anyone here is a Stockhausen fan, but to have an event, a bit like what we've done here, where you listen for 40 minutes, an hour, particularly to Stockhausen, because you're not going to hear it on the radio, and you're not going to play it in the car, and the only way you're going to hear it is to sit in a room and play it from start to finish. I mean, that's how they used to listen to classical music and symphonies. You know, you wouldn't listen to a 3-minute section. You'd listen to the whole thing, or an opera or something. And that's a bit like what we've done here, you know. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
Hello. Over here, waving, John.
Okay.
In the back. You talked earlier about, I think, the band having a lot of their parts and arrangements already worked out, and obviously you went and listened to them playing their demos. I'm kind of interested to hear how much you were able to influence in the final record in terms of arrangements, parts, and changes from what you heard initially. You know, was it just sort of sonically stuff that you were able to change, or was there some fundamental areas that you were able to influence and change in the studio process?
Not really, because Radiohead are great musicians. They'd had all that worked out. If I was doing another record, for instance, like you mentioned, the Stone Roses, yes, there would be an arrangement thing. This bit needs to go on longer, but not with Radiohead, no. So there wasn't, you know, there might be endings that you need longer. You know, even listening today, that track Bones used to go on forever. Jung, 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 jung. You know, it used to just play for another 3 minutes, just out of well, I don't know, boredom. No, it's like what's the Beatles track? I Want You. She's So Heavy.
Yeah.
You know? With that, the repetition of that and some of the other things. So. No, I didn't need to with them, because musically they had it together. Yeah.
Hello. I'm here. Hello. Hey.
Oh yeah.
Hi.
Sorry.
I was just gonna ask if you, because you had so much time to work on this album, how do you avoid kind of working yourself up into a lather and the band up into a lather about kind of reaching the end goal, and how much is it instinct or something else that tells you to call it and tells you this album is done, if you know what I mean?
When do you stop, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know what they say. Great art is never finished, it's abandoned. It's at the time you have to say, either the record company says, you know, the budget, you know, you've run out of money, you've got to finish by 6 o'clock Friday, you know, or you go on forever. We were lucky because we were allowed to go on forever until someone said, we got to go on tour, you know, you can't do next week because we're playing gigs, you know. So it depends on, often it depends on the budget, on how much money you got and that kind of thing. But yeah, it can go on forever, particularly nowadays with the laptops and computers, and you just, you know, you can get up in the middle of the night and do a little mix on your laptop. But, you know, in those days you had to go into a studio. And it's interesting because the only time you heard the music was in the studio. You didn't really, you know, again, it goes back to playing it on different speakers. You really take a mix home and play it in the car because you're so saturated with it through your waking hours. The last thing you want to do is drive home and listen to the mix or what you've just been working on. You don't want to listen to any music. So, yeah, that's, yeah, and, you know, it's always you give up in the end.
This one up here, and oh, right here.
Hi. So this may not be a question for you, but the record sleeve was the first thing that arrested me before I'd even heard a single note of it. And I wondered, I mean, it's obviously Tom, but under what circumstances was it taken, and how much messing about, if you know what I mean?
It's not Tom. That picture's not of Tom.
Is it not?
No, it's of,
assumed it was.
what do they call it? A crash test dummy. It's a
Oh,
dummy.
right, yes.
That's not Tom at all.
Oh, right. Oh, well, there
It's
you
a
go.
picture that, what's his name? Stanley, the artist that works. So there's an exhibition at the Ashmolean. Stanley Donwood. Yeah, he does all the covers. And so he had this picture before any of the songs were written, as far as I understand. But no, that's not Tom.
Oh, well, I stand corrected.
And it's great. I mean, we're sitting looking at it for the last few hours, but it's great because you don't know really what that guy's feeling. You know, is he feeling absolute pain or is he feeling bliss?
Or relief.
You know, relief or something. You know, it's a great image.
While we're doing that, while he's passing the mic, you have a message from Guy Massey. He says he's sorry he couldn't make it.
Oh.
He says, wow, it doesn't feel like 30 years ago. It was such a pleasure to assist you and Chris Brown on the Abbey Road sessions. This album still immediately transports me back to those times, and it never feels dated. It is indeed a classic. Not a question really, but a thank you of always asking for Abbey Road engineers to work with you and effectively giving my career a starting point.
Oh,
Cheers,
good.
Guy.
That's Guy. Guy's not here, yeah. Is Chris Brown here? Hey, right at the back. Chris worked on the record as well. Chris was at Abbey Road and we did lots of mixing and also we've mixed Maya and Lung and all sorts of things. Yeah, so Chris is big man at the back there.
There's another question
Hi.
here.
Yeah, you're talking a bit about click tracks, and my thought was that a band with Flip Selway in it doesn't need click tracks. That was my, he's going to be on time. My main question was about, you're talking a bit about the guitar pedals and all that kind of stuff, and listening to the album, and particularly listening to it on kind of proper speakers, is how integral the guitar sounds are to the songs. And I guess my question is, when they came into the studio with the songs, were the sounds of the guitars already there, or were they spending days fiddling about with different pedals?
Yeah, the first few days, first week, was spent fiddling around with guitar sounds because Ed's okay. Ed O'Brien has got he's there and he's got it. But Johnny wanted to explore, Tom wanted to explore Johnny's sounds, and they had a deal with Gibson guitars, and they went off to Gibson's showroom and came back with a van load of different guitars and Marshall amps and all this stuff. And we ended up using his normal setup, which is just a Telecaster, Fender Twin, Bluesbreaker pedal maybe, yeah, and that's it. You know, Big Muff is big use of that at that time. That's it. There's not a lot. You know, it's, what can I say, clean and dirty, really.
Mm-hmm. One more question? Yeah.
You've mentioned the time you went for sort of dinner out and the different studios that you had to work in and the fact that you were with them and without them, and sometimes you did all these sorts of things. Was there a standout moment? Is there a favourite memory of this album that you have?
It was 30 years ago. I'd have to think about that. A standout memory.
When someone says the Bends to you, what do you remember?
I think of Johnny's hair, really. That's what I think of because he was always doing that.
Well, after listening to it tonight, do you think, how do you feel about it 30 years later on the day that it was released?
It's great. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you proud of your work on it?
Oh, yeah. I don't know where it stands today. It's funny because my grandson, who's 15, his dad's sitting there, and he says, "Oh, Peter, do you want to come and see Granddad, doing the talk on Radiohead?" What album? The Bends. And he said, "I'm only into Amnesia." Don't want to hear that. Not into the Bends,
Oh, that's brilliant.
So it shows that this, it's probably, dare I say, it's a bit old-fashioned because it's guitars, cranked up guitars.
Well, that never goes out of fashion for me.
No,
personally.
it never goes out. There you go.
Well, it's been a real joy and pleasure to have you
great.
here. And thank you so much for sharing your memories, your stories, some of the recording
Thank you.
techniques of this incredible classic album that has certainly stood the test of time and is considered one of the albums that changed music by The Observer. There you go.
Yeah,
That's
there you
a
go.
pretty tall accolade. Anyways, thank you. Please give a hand to John Leckie.
Good.